Hello lovely people, it's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. I am wearing my vested interest vest from Drops Design and I've been wearing it all day. And it's been the perfect thing. It's a perfect indoor sweater because it keeps you just warm enough to be comfortable but not overheating, you know, when you get those sort of menopausal flashes or washes of heat. Do you know what I mean? It's been great. It was a day off for me today, and I went over to my friend's house and a couple other friends showed up and we did a teeny bit of crafting, a lot of coffee and tea drinking, mince pie eating, apple muffin eating and catching up, and it was great. More about that in a bit. I've got a lot of small things to talk about for starters. I'm sure I'll have more to show you later in this video, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'm starting this video Thursday evening. It's a week to Christmas and I feel very underprepared, which is silly really because I've been crafting like mad. You know, the last few weeks I've been making and making and making, but I don't feel like I'm really ready. I think it's a symptom of working in retail. You end up having like at least 2 months, possibly more, of thinking about Christmas because the product's in the store, people are getting crazy about it. And you know it's coming because Christmas comes on the same date every year. And then you're working and you're getting all those other life things done. And suddenly it's a week away and you're like, I'm not ready. I need to make a plan for what we're going to eat in the next week. I usually like to make a meal plan for a whole week at a time anyway, at least for the dinners. Breakfast and lunches take care of themselves. But I really, really need to figure out what the menu plan is for the next week. That will have to just happen on the weekend, I think, because today has gone by in a flash and tomorrow I'll be meeting a friend in the morning and working all afternoon. So yes, the weekend will have to be dedicated to deciding what we're going to eat and shopping for it. The first thing I want to show you is this thing I made. Now, you've already seen the finished product at the end of the last vlog, but just as a flat pillowcase, cushion cover thing. But I'm really excited to say it is now full of scraps. And the scraps from that crocheted scrap bag, where is it? This one. This big crocheted scrap bag, or rather bag. Well, it was a scrap bag because it was made of scrap yarn. But anyway, this thing that was stuffed full of scraps last time is now empty because all of the scraps are now in here. This is the crumb block pillowcase that I made with a zipper in the end. And I stuffed and stuffed and stuffed and stuffed. And I was thinking I would probably have some scraps left over. But no, they all fitted in here. And then I thought, it is so insanely heavy. I've got to weigh it. So let me just see. Dropped my piece of paper on the floor. Hold on a second. I wrote down the weight. It weighs 2,634 grams, which is over 2.5 kilos. And the imperial weight of that is 5.8 pounds. Isn't that insane? Nearly 6 pounds of scraps in there. It looks great here on my armchair, and that's where it's going to live. And if I ever need to do a scrappy project, I'll know where to come. Honestly, it's so darned heavy. I love it so much, though. It came out brilliant and perfect for its purpose. What else? One of the reasons I wanted to start recording a new vlog tonight is that I'm giving something to my friend tomorrow morning, and I wanted you to see it before I got it out of the house. So I made a really, really simple little card. All I did was mask off the card. This comes from a set that was just envelopes and cards that are ready to decorate, do whatever you like with. Masked it off, did a watercolor wash with my Inktense pencils. I guess they're not really watercolor, but you know what I mean. Got a wet paintbrush, used a few colors, made a nice wash, let it dry. And then I used my glittery gel pens. Like, I have a set of 100 gel pens from Michaels. And I pulled out some of the glittery ones, and I just did simple triangles for trees, and then a little bit of extra embellishment, and just wrote peace and joy on it. And I really, really love it. I don't know, I can't tell if you're seeing all of the design properly. Hope you can see the gold stars on top of the trees. And I just realized I still need to write the card. It's completely blank still inside. So I had better do that tonight, so I'm not rushing around at the last minute in the morning. So the other thing I made, just as a really quick and simple gift for her, I made another button tree. And I really like this one. So I made it into a keychain, like I did with the paw beads for my family, with the paw print on and the ceramic beads. And this tree is made like the ones I made a little while back during Slowvember. And I used brown buttons for the trunk and green and red buttons for the main part of the tree. So I think she'll like that. I hope she'll like that. I'm popping it in a little organza bag, and I'll give that to her tomorrow. So I'll have to remember to write that card. Each time I talk about something, I'm going to have to put it on the floor and leave it where I can see it, so I don't forget about things like that. There's been very little crafting over the course of the last few days because I had shifts and I had life stuff, just general life stuff happening. And so all I've managed to do in the crafty department, apart from the little tree, is some crochet. As you may know, I'm working my way through this box. It's called the Granny Square Card Deck by Claire Montgomery, and there are 50 cards in here, and all of the Granny Square designs in here are unique. So I decided I would use my Lion Brand Heartland stash to do a square at a time. And then each time I do one of the squares, I'll put the card at the bottom of the box and see how that goes. So let's see, what did I have? I dropped these earlier, so I'm hoping I didn't mix them up. The new ones, let me just make sure it's correct now. Okay, so this one is now realized in yarn. So that one's done. And this one is now done. They look a lot different with a different color scheme, don't they? And this one is now this. So what I'll be able to do now is put these 3 cards to the bottom of the box. And so now I have a total of 6 squares, because these are the ones I had already made. They're all going to have a black edge, outer edge, and I will join them together with the black, probably. Definitely, because, I always find it looks good. It gives you kind of a stained glass effect if you have black around each of the squares. I do like that. So 6 out of the 50. It's going to be a while, but I'm getting there. One of the things that I like to do sometimes is sit there and stare at Instagram reels for far too long. And sometimes there's some really crafty and creative stuff out there. And I saw this reel the other day, and you know how they always make it look super easy, right? And she was making paper stars, and she was just getting a book page and then concertina folding it, tying a little thing in the middle, and then pulling the sides out and gluing them. Oh, and there was also a little bit of diagonal cutting on each end just to make them like sharper star points. I thought, wow, that's easy. That'll take like 5 minutes. Wow. It wasn't as easy as it looked. And it took me a while to figure out what was going on. Hang on, where's my nice one? Okay, let me show you that one last. So here's what I did. For some reason, I was ending up with a fan. I did the concertina folding. I just pulled this out of a book of paper that I've got. I did the concertina folding and I tied it in the middle and I pulled this edge out and glued it. But for some reason, it wouldn't come around the other way, which I thought strange because I was sure that she had just used a regular rectangular page out of a book to do hers. And I thought, why is it not working? So I thought maybe I had done it from the wrong side. Maybe I had gone from side to side instead of top to bottom or something. So then I tried another one, including a little bit of cutting of points. It really still doesn't work. It's better. I could probably have forced it, actually. Now I'm looking at it again. I could probably have forced it around. And with the cut points, it actually does look rather cool. But I still wasn't happy with that. It wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing, in my opinion. And then I tried it again somehow. I think I tried it with a square. Of course, it didn't work. Didn't work at all. That one didn't even get to be like half of a circle, let alone a full circle. So in the end, what I had to do was make it twice as long as it was wide. So it was basically a rectangle that was twice as long as it was wide. And I folded it from the short end to the short end. And it finally worked. So this is what this one turned out like. The two ends came together. I managed to stick them down. I didn't cut my points very well. Some of the points are a bit blunt. But at least it came out how it was supposed to. So then I gave up with that idea because it was like, okay, I'm not going to make any more of those because they're not coming out like I would like them to. So in a minute, I'll show you what I was making at my friend's today, which was also a little bit of a challenge at times, but we ended up figuring it out. Let's just quickly talk about the book I'm reading. Now, in Slowember, right at the end of Slowember, I think I talked about in December, I had kind of set myself up with some massive novels. There were at least 3 massive novels that were like 3 inches thick each. And I was hoping to read them all. And because I had that week off, the second week of December, I had that week off and I thought, oh, I'll have lots of reading time. It'll be great. Well, once I got to almost a couple of hundred pages into one of them, I thought, I feel like I've read this before. And either I have, or it's just really, really similar to another book I've read. So I gave up on that one. And then I got a thing from the library saying I had some books due back yesterday. So I went in and I renewed some of the ones that I wanted to keep because they're going to be closing for 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year. And I thought, it'd be great. if I can renew them, that gives me like another month to get them read. But unfortunately, one of them is on hold for somebody. Somebody else has put it on hold, which means I have to return it by the due date. And I haven't even started that one. So that one's out the window. So out of these 3 massive tomes, the only one I actually have started reading and persevered with is this one. Stephen King. It's called Sleeping Beauties. And it's about some sort of weird illness that only afflicts women around the world. And as they go to sleep, they get this cocooning thing growing all over them. And all of the men are going, what's going on? You know, they don't know what's going on. And some of the people, until they learn that they're not supposed to do it, some of the people are trying to rip the web from around their face, say, or their body, or try and wake them up. And if they do that, then the woman gets really, really violent. She'll wake up long enough to attack somebody, and then she'll go back to sleep, and the web kind of regrows over her. Typical weird stuff from Stephen King, I suppose. Not really a horror story that, you know, he used to be most famous for, I feel, but definitely weird. And I'm almost, what is that? Maybe 2/3. I'd say I was 2/3 through the book right now. And at least I've found out now what's happening with the women when they are sleeping, which I won't mention in case you want to read the book. And I just have absolutely no idea of how this is going to end, which is nice in a way. I'm not trying to predict or anything, and I'm not seeing anything inevitable here. So I'm actually really enjoying that because it's keeping me guessing. So it's a good read if you want a really thick book. Admittedly, this is a large print book, which is why it is that thick. If you got the non-large print, the regular print, it wouldn't be as thick as that. But it's still a lot of pages, a lot of reading. So as I mentioned before, I was at a friend's to do some crafting and some coffee drinking and some snack eating today. And she had planned for us to do some paper stars. Now, the funny thing is that Mr. Stitches learnt how to make these paper stars a long, long time ago. And he really enjoyed making them for a while. And we used to have some of them hanging in our Christmas tree every year because I just used to put them in the box of decorations and pull them out again every year. And then they got to be a little bit battered, and we don't have any anymore. But we now have some more. The funny thing was, though, she hadn't made any for a few years, and we got a little stuck on the second part where you make the pointy bits that stick out at the front and back of the stars. And so there were 4 of us there today, and we were all struggling, trying to decide what the instructions, the tiny little diagram on the back of the packet of paper strips was trying to get us to do to make these little points. It took us forever. We figured it out in the end. So my friend made a couple of these and I made a couple of these. I think she made the plain ones. So this is one. And this is another. And then I made this 2-tone one. And another little 2-tone one. And then I made a large one with 4 different strips, which I really like. It's kind of nice having the 4 different patterns on it, I think. So what I'm going to have to do is get a needle and thread and make some hanging loops on them so that I can put them on my tree. Once we got the hang of it, we just banged out a couple more. It was I think it probably took us 2 hours to make the first one and like 10 minutes to make all of the next ones. But yeah, we had a good time anyway. It was very enjoyable. And she also gave me a gift, which I will also show you. So there's a set of oven gloves. Can never have too many oven gloves, in my opinion. I have some silicone ones that are not very sexy, and where the padding on the inside has broken a little bit, so you can get hot spots on it. So it's not ideal. So having some new ones is actually great. And I also made some really small ones can't remember why I made them. Why did I make the really small ones? I think it was to hold the handles on my my Dutch ovens. I have cast iron enameled Dutch ovens. The handles and the pot, they'd get really, really hot. So I have little oven gloves for that. So I'm really happy to have another set. And then the gift included this star, which looks like it's made from fabric with interfacing on it. And I have no idea how she made it, because it's got that woven center. So it's very, very intricate looking. So that also is going to need a hanging loop so it can go on my tree. And there's a couple more little things in there. Because she's Scandinavian, of course, I'm getting lovely Scandinavian inspired things from her. She made a couple of these woven hearts as well. Very beautiful. And then when I opened the card, wow, I was blown away by the card. So she makes these postcards, and she makes them with fabric and I think something like Peltex, which is a stiff interfacing, and fabric on the back. So look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's using all sorts of trims and buttons and lace. Absolutely gorgeous. So I think that's something that's going to have to be kept in the Christmas box and come out every year, because that's not something I'd want to get rid of at all, ever. It's too nice. And then I got another gift from another friend. She actually gave it to me a couple of weeks ago because she was going on holiday for the whole month of December. And I know it's still a week to Christmas, and I was going to save this for next week, but I couldn't resist. I know, terrible, hey? So she gave me some tea berries teas, loose leaf tea. But this is the kicker. I love this. Crocheted earrings. How gorgeous are those? The funny thing is when we went to that Christmas market a week or two ago, I saw a woman selling these crocheted earrings, and I stopped to talk to her briefly. And I said to her, I'm not going to be making anything like this myself. I can crochet, but I'm not going to make anything that tiny because I don't have the eyes for it anymore. But yeah, that's amazing. They feel like they've got a little bit of starch on them, like in the old days when you made a doily and you starched it to make it a little bit stiffer. Feels like she's done that with her earrings. Love them. So I'm going to have to tell my friend. But I peaked a week early, and hey, at least it means I can wear them sooner. Got my Christmas light earrings in today. So I had my Christmassy festive vest on today and my Christmas light earrings. And when I went to leave my friend's house, I put on my gingerbread applique beanie as well, because it was cold. The temperature really dropped between arriving at my friend's house and leaving. I think it dropped about 3 or 5 degrees because of the snow that came through. So yeah, I'm hoping that I've got a little bit of footage of that snow. I did try. I even went out on the deck and stood outside and got very wet feet and very cold because I was trying to get some of the snow on record. Well, that's it for now. I think what's going to happen is I will add to this on the weekend. I know I had all sorts of plans for crafty things this month and I can't remember a single thing of what I was going to do, but there's definitely going to be some crafting this weekend. So I'll add that in to this video and it'll be a couple of days for me and a couple of seconds for you. Look at this fabric. I have had this fabric in the stash probably a couple of years at least. And why did it take me so long to realize that these are snow globes? Every single one of these things, the campers, the scooters, the red truck, they're all in a snow globe. That was a duh moment. And so this has inspired a small slow stitching project. I'm going to cut out one of these, probably with some excess around it. Unfortunately, a lot of them overlap. So I'm going to have to be selective as to which one I cut out because I'm going to lose part of another possibly. But I think if I cut one out and put it on some batting and some backing, I can do a little tiny bit of snow stitching and make myself a new ornament in the process. So I have a very small scrap of batting to hand, and I have this tree fabric which can go on the back, and I have a little bit of embroidery thread. It's crazy, really. I have all of these arts and crafts supplies, and I found my mojo had just slipped a little bit. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something. So now I just need to decide which of these I am going to cut out. This will be a nice, small, quick thing, relatively quick thing that I can make while I am considering what to do next. Just grab a needle and do a little bit of basting on here. I'm doing some long basting stitches with this green sewing thread to hold my 2 layers together while I do some other fancier stitching. I do apologise for the crackling on the video in the first part. On Thursday, I did that long blurb to the camera and I edited it, and I was really disappointed to notice that every so often there'd be this random crackling that just didn't seem to be caused by anything obvious. So I have dug out an old microphone, and I'm hoping that this one works and does the job, because that crackling was very annoying. Very annoying indeed. Yeah, I think that's all I need to do, really. It's not perfectly flat, but it'll hold it in place while I do some other stitches. I haven't really decided what stitches I'm going to do yet, but I think with the silver I'd quite like to add some snowflakes, but I might leave that for now and do something else first. Let's do some green. Been a productive day today. I spent quite a long time this morning making a meal plan for 2 weeks because I wanted to have all of the dinners planned so that I could shop for them. So I now have my Yule meal, my winter solstice meal for tomorrow night sorted out. And I have my Christmas Eve meal sorted out. And my Christmas Day lunch, which is going to be really simple, as it always is. And also my New Year's Day meal. I'm all planned up to the 2nd of January. And then we went out and bought a huge ton of food so that we could stock the fridge and the pantry and be ready for anything. And I have a knot. Well, the knot wouldn't come out, so I just pulled out what I had done and started again. We've had very windy weather lately, and it's finally feeling cold. December has been so insanely mild, and we had a lot of rain. There was something called an atmospheric river that hit the west coast very badly and caused all sorts of flooding. And thankfully, I think that's improving now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of snow soon. We've been out walking tonight, and the air was pretty cold when we were facing into it rather than having our backs to it. Of course, there's probably going to be some buttonhole stitch. I don't know what it is about the word buttonhole, but I always hang up on that. I'm like, what's the name of that stitch again that we use to go around the edges? Actually, I may not do buttonhole stitch. I might do something else. But I'm not going to think that far ahead right now. That wreath that I made for the front door still looks good. Pulled out some ivy from the garden for it, and it's still looking green. I'm not sure if it'll look a little sorry for itself if we have some sub-zero temperatures, but right now it's looking great. And I had a look at the sunrise and sunset times today, because one of the things I like to do is see when the days get to be their shortest. Obviously, it's going to be at the solstice, which is tomorrow, as I'm doing this right now, the 21st of December. And I love to see what the sunrise and sunset times are at this time. And the day, or the hours of daylight right now, are 8 hours and 5 minutes. 8 hours and 5 minutes. So tomorrow, it should be even shorter. A few minutes shorter. And then the day after that, we'll start to see longer days again. I know I've said before, I do love this time of the year. I made my son laugh yesterday. I said something like, I think next year, Mr. Stitches and I should... Well, of course, I said Dad. I didn't say Mr. Stitches. I said, I think Dad and I should book the time off next Christmas, not over our anniversary, but over the week between Christmas and New Year. And he said, Dad won't need to book time off next year. And I thought, oh, right, of course not, because he is retiring in March. Of course, he won't have to book time off. Unless after he finishes full-time employment, he suddenly decides that, well, maybe I need something to do and I'm going to just find myself a little part-time job, keep me busy. There's a good possibility I'll still be working at Michael's this time next year. So maybe what I'll do is I'll book that week off, because I always feel, I don't know about you, but I always feel like the week between Christmas and New Year feels like a time of the utmost rest and relaxation, or it should be anyway. And it shouldn't be a time for work. And maybe I'll just book the whole of December off. My boss would be very irritated by that, I'm sure, because November, December are our busiest times. Well, September through December, really. But November and December are very busy. And if I was to book December off, she'd probably fire me. This is probably not my best work, because I am sewing while looking through the camera on my phone. I'm looking at my phone screen so that I can get you nice and close up to what I'm doing. I think I'm going to go upstairs and do more of that on the couch, and then I'll show you some progress a little bit later in this video. Good morning. Yes, it's Sunday morning. Guess how much sleep I had last night? 4 hours. I went to bed at 10, even though I wasn't particularly tired. But I should go to bed at a decent time. And I woke up in the night and was tossing and turning, checked the time. I thought, oh, good grief, it's only 2:30. And I just couldn't get back to sleep, so I got up, had a cup of tea, stared at stupid videos on my phone for ages, because I wanted to keep most of the lights off. So now I am showered and dressed, and I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to be feeling later on, but at the moment I am at least mostly compos mentis. Let's get these basting stitches out of here. We'll have a closer look at the stitching. I did some of this last night, and then when it got later this morning, I added some more, and I think I'm done with the stitching on this right now, except for the edging. Rid of all these bits. So I've done some brown stitching on these leaves. Let's see if I can move my ring light to be a bit more bright right over the work. Stitching in brown over the stems. A fancy schmancy thing over this ornament here. Some white stitching for the snow, some black stitching for a bit of outlining. Some green on the tree, some French knots, and some rather lovely silver around the edge. And to make it look like snowflakes. That silver is awful stuff. Let me just grab that little skein of it that I've got. Where is it? Here. So this stuff, I'm not sure what the fibre content is, but obviously it's not cotton like the other DMCs. It's 6-stranded, and I thought I might do it, 3-stranded like I do my other ones, but no. Once you cut a piece of this, it splays out into more like 12 strands, because each of the 6 strands is 2 very skinny strands twisted around each other. And so the 6 strands basically fall apart from each other, and using them singly is really the only way to go. So after a little bit of struggling, that's what I did. And it works. You really don't need a lot of silver. It works fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim around this in a pleasing shape, and then put some fabric on the back, and then go around the edge. And I think I'm going to edge it in this blue here, because the background is blue and I don't really want it to be too in your face. I want the focus to be on the stuff in the middle. So I'm going to pause the camera while I do the cutting, because I don't want to look through my phone camera and cut, because I'll probably mess it up. There it is, all trimmed up, and the macking is on. I used to start blanket stitch in a weird way that ended up with like a double stitch at the front, but now what I do is I go into the batting so that it hides the knot, and then I come out the top. Because that way the stitch starts at this point. I used to put the needle in like this, but then that didn't work. And if you start at the top like that, it segues perfectly into it when you get around to join up at the other end of things. So when it crossed my mind, I checked the sunrise and sunset times for today, and today is 1 minute longer than yesterday. So overnight, we passed the time of the solstice. I think it was about 7 o'clock, 7:10, something like that. So it has happened. So if we were, well, if I was going to say, if we were all pagans back in the day, we'd all be lighting fires and jumping for joy that the sun had returned today. But there are plenty of people who are still doing that sort of celebration today. And in fact, it definitely resonates with me to appreciate and mark the cycles of the year. Because even though we are in a lot of ways so detached from nature now, it's still part of us. We can't get away from nature. We're all affected by the pull of the moon and the brightness of the sun and all that sort of thing, and the tides and the weather. Even if we don't like the thought of it, we can't really avoid it. And most of our traditions that we do at this time of the year, like bringing in evergreens to our homes, holly and ivy, berries, warming spices, feasting, making wreaths, it's all from the pagan traditions. It's not really Christmassy stuff, it's pagan traditions. I'm kind of sad it's so hard to get holly over here. People in Britain, they've probably got it growing all over the place. The house that my parents bought when I was 18. I didn't live in it for very long because I was mostly out of the house at that point, moved out. But they had a lovely holly tree in their garden. And over here, it's just not something you see. Same thing with mistletoe, I think. If you want it, you probably have to buy the fake stuff. The last time I did buttonhole stitch, I put 2 little lines on my thumb and I used them as a guide along there, and I completely forgot to do it this time. But I'm not going to do it now. I'm stubborn like that. When I get to a corner, I just go around and come out right there. And then I take this bit behind. And you have to make this thread do what you want it to do. So then it makes a corner like that. I have to be careful my stitches catch that thing back there. Looks a little short. The forecast said we were due to get some snow overnight, and we didn't have any. Right now the sun is shining. Probably pretty cold out there. I'm not sure what the temperature is, but it's sunny and it's definitely not snowy. If I look across the valley, I can see snow on the mountains. But there's none here. So unless we have a drastic change in conditions, it looks like we may not be getting a white Christmas this year. And here we are back at the beginning again. So this is where my starting thread came out of, and this is my last stitch. So all I need to do is go down into the filling, batting, whatever. Be a little tricky. So down inside, in between the layers. Oh, it keeps wanting to focus on the back. There we go, the background. I'm going to try and do it without making a knot. There's already a lot of knots inside those layers. And there shouldn't be a lot of stress on that last thread. So I'm just going to run it all the way down there and then snip it. Where are my scissors? Actually not as wavy as I was expecting. I could iron that, couldn't I, if I wanted to maybe make it look a little flatter, but then I'd flatten out my stitches. Just need a hang tag, and seeing as well, not a hang tag, a hanging loop, I know what I meant. Seeing as I have this other piece of blue thread here, I'm going to make a hanging loop out of this. Now I should try and make sure it's in the middle, shouldn't I, so that it doesn't hang crooked. Dun dun dun! Now with that fabric, I could make a lot of these if I felt like it. I probably won't. But that was a nice little quick project when I didn't really know what I wanted to make and how much commitment I wanted to give it. So that's that for today. My little ornament is made. Another little thing to add to my tree, along with those stars and other things I made. And for next time, I'll show you what I make out of these 4-inch squares. This is one of my Ziplocs of pre-cuts that I cut myself from scraps. not purchased as pre-cuts. But because I like those corner bookmarks that I made for Mr. Stitches so much, I want a few of my own, and maybe I'll just make lots of them and give a few away. That would be fun. Not just because it's gifting season, but just because. Next time I have a coffee morning with my friends, maybe I'll have a stash of them ready and I can give a few out. Oh, well, I hope I don't have bags under my eyes the size of bin liners, as they say. Because, yeah, that was not a lot of sleep. And I do usually, ideally, like to get about 8 or 9 hours of sleep a night. But it's okay. It's Sunday. It's a day off. I'm sure we'll go out for a refreshing walk at some point. And we'll have a good dinner tonight. So I'll probably be getting footage later today for the next vlog. For now, hope you have a wonderful winter solstice day and night. And I'll see you again really soon. Bye for now.